Greetings. I'm a piece of film, 16 millimeter, color, with an optical soundtrack, which is all that you can see right now. And I'm about 550 feet long, which means that I've got to hold your attention for the next 15 minutes or so. And since there's not too much time for preliminaries, I better be getting it on. But before I go any further, let me show you my title card. Now that's what I am. A piece of film on the Digital Communications Unit and the Digital Communications System. Let's refer to them as the DCU and the DCS from now on, okay? Just one more thing before I show you some of the pictures on me. Suppose that all of my 550 feet have run through the projector. The lights go back on, you stretch, get up, act polite, and then when it's safe, you turn to an associate and say very softly, another one of those pie-in-the-sky snow jobs from headquarters. Another one of their top priority programs. Ho-hum. Well, I don't want to let that happen. So the best thing that I know how to do to prevent that predictable and rather human kind of reaction is to tell it to you straight. No holds barred. Now that's what I promised to do with my part of the soundtrack, okay? Okay. Here we go.
The United States Postal Service, in its search for maximum utilization of available resources, developed the workload recording system to interface with the Postal Source Data System. Managers have come to hold PSDS and WLRS in highest regard for their extraordinary capacity to receive, store, and report back detailed performance data with speed, accuracy, and high reliability. The systems continue to serve you well today. Within 24 to 48 hours after operations, you and headquarters can know precisely how each day's performance measured up against goals established for your facility.
You've heard that pitch before. You know there's shortcomings with PSDS and Walrus, right? So as the pear-shaped tones of the narrator describe its heroics, let me interject now and then just to keep things at least slightly sane around here.
The systems use transactors, audio links, badge readers, scales, the magic of television, and massive high-speed computers. PSDS and WLRS have proved to be trustworthy workhorses of the Postal Service, vital aids in further improving the management of major facilities through the procurement and dissemination of better information.
Maybe you're saying to yourself, it's not that accurate. That fellow on the floor there sometimes can't hear or be heard through the intercom because of the noise. The woman there on the data site has to look up factor codes, and sometimes she does it incorrectly. Yeah, I can sense your agreement out there. Does my heart good.
Data from WLRS are sent to the PSDS Computation Center in St. Louis. There they are processed, then packaged in reports and sent via high-speed printers directly to managers in the field and at headquarters.
Directly, he says? Well, what good does it do for you to know today the kind of mistakes you might have been making yesterday? PSDS and Walrus are always breaking down. They need parts which are hard to find. They're vulnerable to phone line problems, air conditioning failures, and employee input errors. They need continual adjustments to be anywhere near precise. And you know, one of the primary purposes of the systems is to provide that information for the Postmaster General the next morning. You ever get a flash report based on Walrus data which came in too late to be useful and too inaccurate to be credible?
PSDS and WLRS, the Michelangelo and Da Vinci of data systems. The Postal Service's contribution to management's struggle against the forces of confusion and ignorance.
You think he's overdoing it? Well, just hold on for an even more far-out oration. But first, a 5-second summary. Walrus has served us well for a long time, but it has problems. Now, onward, to the future.
And now, for managers who manage with a big M. Here, for you, years ahead of its time, the Space Age, DCU, and DCS.
There had been some talk about a 40-piece orchestra doing the fanfare, but in the interests of economy and to play down that hard sell stuff, this is what we came up with. Hope it doesn't test your tolerance too much. Okay, Maestro, one more time.
Really, this is a remarkable piece of equipment. DCU stands for Digital Communications Unit. It's that box with buttons and switches which the man on the floor uses to store information about mail volume. You see, the job of putting those data into a computer system has shifted from the WLRS data site operator to this person. There are advantages to that. No chance for errors in communication between him and the data site operator using the intercom as with WLRS. Let's watch a transaction. Notice how quickly it goes. We estimate that it cuts in half the time spent at the floor scale. It eliminates the operator sitting in front of those TV sets altogether. Here comes another load. You see, he can read off the weight from the display. He uses the buttons to put the crucial data into the DCU. Care weight, type of container, number of containers, vehicle weight, where the mail is coming from, where it's going, and finally, transmit. The entire transaction in about 30 seconds.
Right. Now, I can hear your minds working with questions like, yeah, but how can I be any more sure that the clerk will put in correct information than I was with the data site scale operator? And what will the union say about this? How long will it take to train a man to work the DCU thing? How much does it cost to procure, install, and maintain? And when will all this stuff be available for me? Add away. Good manager questions.
The DCU printer records each scale transaction, complete with time of transaction, scale ID number, operation source type codes, and net weight.
Hey, that's something. And get this. San Diego went off PSDS for 4 days due to a St. Louis PSDS malfunction. Well, when PSDS was reactivated, San Diego was able to simply take the tape and update all of the transactions that occurred during that 4-day period. Thus, they didn't have to exercise the Walrus contingency plan, entailing a lot of manual volume counts and clerk hours. And get this. We know that San Diego's quick response just surprised hell out of St. Louis.
In the San Diego Sectional Center facility, where the DCU and DCS were developed and tested, the manpower savings have proved to be significant. Projected annual savings are in the neighborhood of $50,000. In San Diego, input errors alone have been reduced by more than half.
And now what's going on in several of your minds out there is, yeah, San Diego, but I've got different kinds of employees on the floor. Will this really work for me? Right on. Keep your skepticism handy.
Accuracy comes from several sources. The factor codes, which in WLRS have to be looked up in the M63 manual, are built into the DCU setup. Also, there's no need for intercom shouting above the noise on the floor, which, with WLRS, leads to mistakes. And that display makes for easy and correct reading of the load's net weight. That results in real-time available volume data. And that spells accuracy. Savings in time and money and manpower.
Well, he may have looped out there for a minute. He tends to go a bit overboard, but it really is a provocative idea, this DCU, right? And it is operating in a real-life postal facility. The bugs have been worked out of the system, and... Oh, wait a minute. I'm starting to sound like a super salesman. But the best is yet to come.
The Digital Communications System is a series of DCUs interconnected with timekeeping badge readers and transactors. Now the system handles volume plus manpower data, which are available on demand. Let's look in on this tour superintendent using the DCS. When he first comes on duty, he finds an inventory report, which provides him with up-to-date data on the volume of letters and flats to be processed, and the number of employees he has to handle them by operation. This report may be requested at any time during the tour as well. A few hours into his tour, the supervisor is likely to call for a productivity rate report. From this, he finds out the pieces per hour rates for each operation. He can then compare this progress with the performance of his tour in previous days. Thus, he knows, right now, how effectively his crew is operating. If necessary, he can make adjustments to the computations used in compiling this report. The DCS's most important product, which a superintendent might call for several times during a tour, is the processing report. From this, he can learn the number of people involved in handling mail from the beginning of the tour until the present moment, the number of pieces processed since the beginning of the tour, the workload in units since the tour began, and the number of pieces remaining to be worked. And he can then use the DCS to make a forecast.
There's the magic word, forecast. That's one that's been bandied about a good bit in the Postal Service. Each new piece of equipment they bring out seems to promise forecasting capability, but it doesn't often pan out that way when the gears start whirring, does it? So let's be especially attentive to this forecast talk.
He can generate forecasts of the number of hours it will likely take to handle the remaining mail. Perhaps he is concerned about that 6,900 pounds of mail coming to the 035 operation. Can he get all of it sorted in time with his present workforce to meet performance and service standards? Knowing that he only has 5 hours to complete distribution, the superintendent can ask the DCS how many employees he will need to put into the 035 in order to meet his deadline. The DCS tells him 55. Since that is more than the present staffing, the superintendent sees clearly the need for a shift of employees into that potential logjam. Fantastic.
Excuse him for a minute while he returns to some semblance of sanity. But get ready, because his motor's running, the mixture is rich, and he's headed downhill with the wind at his back. Keep those questions in your head. But don't let him cancel out his message. I mean, this is a pretty remarkable development.
And there you have it. Take mail volume data, add employee time clock data, give them to the DCS computer to work its magic, and you get the kind of real-time information that managers have been wanting for so long. And all this with a simple console.
Simple, he says? Could you do it? But onward. Let's let him wind up. He's really onto something.
At any time during the tour, the superintendent can get an employee listing by operation. DCS data are also available on a printout machine, which produces typed reports of anything that appears on the display. Plus, 2 reports, which will be on the superintendent's desk the next day. One which calls his attention to exceptionally good or poor performance by any operation on the previous day, and a second which tells him in summary fashion how that tour performed overall. You have to agree, this digital communication system is remarkable. Better information for better management. Think of it that way. Accurate, real-time, reliable information. If you wish to have additional facts about the DCU and the DCS, call or write Western Region Mail Processing in San Bruno, California. Zip 94099.
You may not like that hard sell style, I don't blame you, but follow up on this digital communications thing if you think it will work for you. And here are some of the main points old Big Mouth made about DCU and DCS. These devices, which have been thoroughly tested in San Diego, give you a working tool, let you know what is going on right now, rather than what happened yesterday. The DCU eliminates the need for manual inputs. It simplifies and automates the weighing process. It substantially reduces input errors, and it stays up when PSDS is down. Plus, it provides immediate volume to DCS. The DCS creates a local facility database where information needed to run the operation is instantly available to supervision. DCS gives you immediate attendance reports. DCS assists you in staffing to proper levels. It lets you analyze a specific operation, and it facilitates your inventory turnover. DCS generally reaches out and takes the pulse of the operation so that you and your employees can do a better job. Well, Maybe you just got a little more data on these developments than you were prepared for at this time. That old bag of wind really socked it to you, but do think it over, okay? Well, my tail's about to fall off the reel, and that hurts, but before they turn me off, just take a few seconds to look at the names of the people who put me together, okay? Okay, you can turn me off now.